What's up, everyone? We have a very exciting video for you guys today. We have some big news with Tesla and their giant recalls, or I should say quote unquote recalls. We also are going to take a look at DraftKings earnings and why the stock is currently moving in after hours. And of course, we have to take a look at the overall market and how it mysteriously started dumping towards the end of the day and why we saw so much selling pressure in the market today. We have an awesome video today. Make sure to stick with us all the way to the end, and we have a lot of great setups and big money plays you won't want to miss. But Tom, let's get right into today's episode.
Yeah, and it actually started off pretty rough today, Mike. You know, we got that PPI data that came out this morning, and it actually showed that the inflation was going up a little bit, or it was a little hotter than expected again, just like we saw with the other inflation reading earlier this week. So the market ended up tanking off there in pre-market. But then what happened? We end up flying all the way back up to retest that big 412.50 resistance. Then we go flying right back down, right towards that low this morning at 408. And it looks like in after hours, we're actually popping right below this support ever so slightly. So we have to really watch 408. That is going to be a really big area. That was a bad sell-off last night, or I should say this morning. And then that was even towards the end of the day today, another bad one. And Mike, I feel like Tesla was one of the biggest reasons that the market kept selling off there. At the end of the day, they actually got some really bad news today where they had to issue a recall for 362,758 vehicles for their full self-driving software. But I will say, you know, Elon did say that the word recall is a little bit old school in his words for kind of for this situation. It's just really a software update. It's not like you have to take the cars anywhere or anything like that.
Yeah, so this is like a very, very interesting piece of news. And I'll tell you, this news, just like you said, Tom, actually had a giant influence on the overall market today. We could see basically once Tesla started to roll over, of course, not only did that have a giant impact on Tesla, but it affected everything else in the market in a pretty bearish way. But Tom, tell us more about this recall situation. Like, give us the details.
Yeah, so it was pretty crazy. Apparently, there's been a lot of issues with this full self-driving beta, and Tesla had to kind of admit to some of this stuff that's going on. They said that this software could act unsafe around intersections, such as traveling straight through an intersection while in a turn-only lane, entering a stop sign-controlled intersection without coming to a complete stop, or proceeding into an intersection during a steady yellow traffic signal without due caution. So Mike, it's running those yellow lights, you know, but it sounds like that there's just some issues that they're trying to work out, and they're going to actually issue an update for this. But Elon was pretty upset. You know, he said that this was actually anachronistic, which pretty much means like old school, to use the word recall for this, because it's just a software update. You know, it's not like you have to take this car into the dealership to fix anything. It's not like the tires are going to fall off. It's not like the engine's going to explode or the batteries are going to mess up. It's just simply a software update to help maybe, it's obviously going to change maybe how some of those sensors work and maybe how they pick things up on the sensors and stuff like that. So it's kind of complicated when you get into the nitty gritty part of it. But the big thing we just need to know is that it's not technically a recall. Well, I should say it's technically a recall, but in Elon's words, they shouldn't really be using that to describe it.
I guess you can just call it a forced update, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Forced update that you could potentially die from if you don't have it. So I guess in that sense, it is kind of like a recall because it's, you know, it could harm people and stuff in that sense. So it's important to have it done especially if you're going to be doing the full self-driving.
Yeah, without a doubt. So either way, keep a close eye on Tesla stock right now because it is plummeting to the downside with a lot of momentum. And I'll be honest, Tesla stock has had such an insane run up year to date so far. I think it's up like over 80%. So realistically, it was kind of due for a pullback anyways.
Yeah, exactly. And what I really love about this is that we're all the way down to that $200 support again. So if we see much more downwards movement below here, and then maybe another move below like 196 tomorrow, I am definitely going to be watching Tesla for some puts. I actually threw this one out in the Discord earlier because I just thought once that news hit, it had a lot of potential, and it looked like it did end up moving down there quite a bit. But Mike, I know like Tesla was a big mover today. It had a lot of negative movement. It caused a lot of other stocks to fall down as well. We do have DraftKings with their earnings tonight and DoorDash. And Mike, I will say DraftKings, it is going very well so far, especially with the price action all the way up to $19, almost pushing up to 20. And when I start looking at the PowerPoint and I start reading all the good things that they've been doing year over year, man, some of these numbers are awesome. Like, for example, that revenue is up 81%. That is insane.
Yeah, so taking a deeper look at DraftKings earnings, it was pretty decent. So they actually beat on earnings per share estimates as well as the revenue estimates. And just like Tom said, their revenue for this quarter is actually up 81% year over year. Where else are you seeing that type of revenue growth anywhere in the market? So I love to see that. You guys know I love DraftKings for the long term, so that's awesome to see. But they also had a lot of other good signs from their earnings. Their monthly unique payers are up quite a bit, which is awesome to see. And they also raised their guidance too. So overall, I would say it was a pretty good report. We all know how earnings can be on the stock. You know, sometimes the stock pops up at first and then tanks down later. But overall, I love to see earnings like this. And I'll also make a video looking at them in a much more deeper sense.
Looking at the price action today, that is a big move up. And looking at their stock, I'm going to try to look at maybe some big areas coming up here for us to watch, because they have had quite the breakout ever since breaking this trend line back to the upside a couple weeks ago. You know, it's been very explosive ever since then. And I'm going to go ahead and watch as they start to rise for a hit around this $20 resistance. And then at 21 after that, you can see at 21, there's been multiple hits this year right around there. And even at 20, you know, there's been a couple hits there too, but 21 seems to be the bigger level up there. And man, if this continues, I think it could make for a pretty good breakout trade. And it's not just DraftKings. You know, we've been seeing a lot of growth stocks have a lot of explosive movement lately. So this is going to be awesome if this continues, and hopefully we can get these breakouts.
Now, Tom, I'm going to be honest. So while I love to see, you know, of course, growth stocks popping to the upside and, of course, DraftKings popping to the upside, if we take a closer look at the heat map today, it was just a sea of red. You know, it's like when you have a market like this, you know, even if you have a stock that has good news, it's hard for stocks to truly break out. So while I love to see the good news in select stocks, sometimes you get rejections in these types of environments.
Yeah, you definitely can. So I'll keep that in mind too. But you know, the good news is it's an earning continuation. And honestly, DraftKings isn't that correlated to the overall market, which I like. It is correlated a little bit, of course, but you know, it's one of those things. It's an earnings move. If it's interpreted good enough, you know, it could have a nice continuation. But like you said, there were a lot of stocks down today, and even the stocks that like had great days, like Fastly, for example, started pulling back really hard there towards the end whenever Tesla got that bad news. So that is a big worry, you know, with all those tech stocks starting to pull back pretty hard.
Without a doubt. Well, Tom, let's get right into some setups for tomorrow. One stock I'm watching pretty closely is NSC, Norfolk Southern. This is basically the train company or the rail company that is mainly responsible for the Ohio train disaster. The stock's been tanking down in a decent way over like the past week, but I think it has a lot more room to fall. The momentum's picking up, and as more bad sentiment / momentum comes from the Ohio train disaster, I think this stock will struggle even more. So I am pretty bearish on this one. You know, like, of course I'm watching it tomorrow, but it's a play that can take like a couple weeks.
Yeah, it definitely can. And I'm really like waiting for that big news to come out for NSC that might really send them down. Like, they're already starting to fall today. It was pretty rough for them. And I've been waiting, Mike, for some news of like some lawsuits. Maybe, unfortunately, you know, there's a lot of terrible things, like livestock has been dying. And I'm really worried this is going to start, you know, impacting people. Like, you know, you would think these are like a lot of carcinogens and stuff like that. So I don't know, you know, anything can happen as this goes on. But yeah, that's definitely a big play for the next couple of days. And the first one I want to talk about is AMD. And Mike, we've been talking about these chip stocks to the downside for a little while now. AMD broke below a big support at 80 right before the market closed. I'm going to watch for a push down to maybe around like 77 tomorrow if the market sells off enough. That would be a pretty big push, and I'm going to really watch it for a nice drop. Looking at the daily chart, they are bouncing right off of a key trend line here. And this is like the third bounce that we're seeing actually with AMD right on the trend. And I will say it was a perfect bounce over the past two touches. So I like this. It looks like it's going to continue down. There's even a gap down to around 77 to 75, like I said. So we'll be watching this one very closely over the next couple days.
All right, sounds good. Another stock I'm watching is UVXY. How can you not watch this one when the market's moving to the downside? So basically, for those of you who don't know, UVXY is a stock that just goes absolutely insane when there's a lot of, I guess you could say, volatile selling pressure and just fear into the market. UVXY is not an ETF or stock you want to hold over the long term because it does decay, but in the short term, it can have some very powerful movement. So I'm definitely watching it to the upside over the next couple days. If we see continued selling pressure, this thing definitely has room to run up.
Yeah, I mean, look at that. That uptrend at the end of the day there was a 7% move on that stock. So that is actually a pretty big move there. So definitely keep it on the radar. And it's also right around that resistance. It's weird. UVXY has been kind of bouncing around this 510 area, believe it or not. So I'm kind of watching that one as well. I know that we've been talking about UVXY with some of these earnings, and especially with how some of these inflation reports have made the market a little bit shaky here. So I'll be watching it also. And man, I'm really keeping an eye on these banks like JP Morgan. I feel like that when I look at these daily charts for the banks, some of these banks have recovered up so much in the short term. Now, I know some stocks are probably up more percentage wise. Like you could probably go look at, for example, something like Zoom, from low to high, it's probably a higher percentage move to the upside. But I feel like JP Morgan, it's just a nice steady move over multiple months. I'll definitely be watching this one for a pushback down. We're getting a stiff rejection at this 144 resistance. And with the overall market selling down, I think this could be a pretty good play to the downside here.
All right, sounds good. Well, it is now time for the momentum plays. With today's first one, we actually have one of your setups, Tom, AMD to the downside.
Yeah, awesome. So yeah, they're breaking right below 80 here to end the day. I would say if they could break below 79.50 tomorrow, I'm going to watch for a continuation down.
All right, with the next one, we have AI also to the downside.
AI, yeah, this one's pretty overextended in the short term too. I would say make them break below $24. That's actually a pretty big support here.
And with the last one, we have VOD to the upside.
VOD, yeah, nice to see this one continuing a little bit. Go ahead and make them break out above $12.55.
Boom. All right, so we're watching VOD for potential day trade to the upside tomorrow, only if it breaks above the level Tom listed. And then you can't forget about ticker symbol AI and AMD for potential day trades to the downside tomorrow, only if they break below those lower levels. But it is now time for my favorite part of today's video, and that is the big money trade of the day. We have $870,000 going into DXC, and more specifically, it is the DXC 30 strike put options that expire on June 16th of 2023. So DXC has been falling pretty continuously over the past couple years. It's an information technology service company. It doesn't really have too much momentum in either direction right now, but today there was a very unusual trade that came through, basically betting that DXC is going to tank down. This trade is slightly in the money and it has some time, so it looks pretty bearish to me. And as the market itself is tanking, that would definitely bring some, I guess you could say, selling pressure onto this stock. So very interesting trade, and it looks like someone's betting on a downtrend for this one.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, Mike. I think it looks like a pretty good trade here. There's a nice double top going on at this $30 resistance, and I really like that with this trade. So I will keep this on the radar. I love the technicals, and if we start to trade back towards the middle, even towards 27 or the bottom of the range, around 25 to 25.50, I think that'll be a pretty good move on those options. So yeah, I'll definitely keep it on the radar, Mike. And that long-term chart for DXC does look pretty brutal, just like it has for every other growth stock. But yeah, that movement today in the overall market is pretty worrying.
Yeah, one thing I will say with this one is personally, I wouldn't be too surprised if it did take a couple weeks to actually follow through. Basically, it looks like the stock just doesn't have too much momentum. And as you just circled on the chart, the option has all the way till June 16th. So, I wouldn't be surprised if this one takes a little bit of time to go through.
Yeah, exactly. That is a little bit far out on the expiration, but I will say though, I do like that for a possible play back down to the bottom of the range. So hopefully we see this rejection keep happening and, it could end up being a pretty nice play. Hopefully they're not shorting those puts here, Mike. That would be a pretty weird spot to do it.
Yeah, that's true. If they are shorting them, it'd be a decent pump fake, for everyone looking to follow these puts. But, with looking at DXC's chart a little bit further and then also with the market itself dumping, I guess we'll just have to play it by ear.
Yep, and that SPY does look pretty brutal today. I'll tell you, that was a pretty bad sell-off. I mean, I don't know if you can get a worser heat map than this today. We're lucky Cisco was green, or else it would have looked terrible.
True. All right, Tom. Well, honestly, even though we had a pretty bloody heat map, I don't mind it because that equals opportunity. Like when you look at the stock market or SPY intraday over the past week, there was a lot of chop and boring, confusing movement, but to me, it looks like we're finally getting like a decent move, and right now it's to the downside. So I really don't mind it. Do you have any final thoughts or any other stocks you want to touch on?
Yeah, this is awesome. We're finally getting a big move. Like you said, we've been kind of stuck here for a while between this range of like 408 and 415. So I hope that we can at least continue in one way or the other. And I think right now it's looking like it's to the downside. But I will say, Mike, over the past couple weeks, every time we touch this lower support, it seems like we rocket back up. If I wake up in the morning and the SPY's all the way back up to like 412 or something, I'm going to be a little bit pissed. So hopefully we get a nice continuation down and we can end the week strong with some nice put plays. And I will say that bad news with Tesla really has me thinking that we might continue down at least in the overall tech market or tech sector. So definitely watch it, guys. I think it's a big area here. Even Tesla's at a big support at 200. So I'm going to be watching it for a potential drop.
Boom. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for watching today's video. If you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. When you subscribe, you'll see our videos recommended to you more often. And if you're not in the Stocked Up Discord chat yet, definitely check out that first link in the description in the comments down below. It's completely free to join, and we have a bunch of amazing people and traders in the chat. You also get access to a free news bot, free day trades, and a bunch of other great tools. So definitely join. It's completely free. It's that first link in the description and the comments down below. Besides that, let's have an amazing end to the week.